Hi, everyone. So Nvidia, well, it's because the purchase of X20, it dropped a lot, but Wang Renxun immediately went to Beijing to meet with He Lifeng. She said she wants to continue developing the Chinese market. Additionally, she met with the founder of DeepSeek, Liang Lifeng. Meanwhile, the US is investigating where DeepSeek's chips actually come from. Also, how did DeepSeek and Huawei's Ascend chips come about? This video is prepared to answer that question. Alright, on April 17th, Wang Renxun, this time, was invited by the China Council for the Promotion of International Trade to go to Beijing, took a 3-month leave, and then went again. Wang Renxun is very good with people, and during this visit, it was just announced that the indefinite export control of H20 has been lifted, and the export permit has been cancelled. Now, you need to obtain a permit to export. She has to write off $5.5 billion. She said that last year, they sold about $16 billion in this area, which means, in terms of her mother's money, the gross profit was about $12 billion. And the net profit? It was $7.1 billion, and as a result, $5.5 billion was written off at once. On that day, Wang Renxun met with Renxun, the president of the China Council for the Promotion of International Trade. She said that China is a very important market for Nvidia and hopes to continue cooperating with China. She will come up with some new chips to see if she can negotiate with the Donald Trump administration on how they can accept these specifications. That's how it is. According to CCTV reports, she wasn't wearing black leather stockings, but rather a dark blue suit and a tie with some patterns. Tie. Why? It turns out that during the meeting, it was stated that this is old news. This image shows that the US government has strengthened chip export controls, which has had a huge impact on Nvidia's business. How should I put it? It's reduced by more than 10%. If Nvidia's growth this year was supposed to be 40 to 50%, it would turn into 20 to 30%. The company will spare no effort to optimize products that meet regulatory requirements. I'll do exactly what you allow me to do. That evening, Wang Renxun unusually met with Vice Premier He Lifeng. It turns out she met He Lifeng, who expressed his welcome. Including Nvidia, more American companies are going to China to develop. According to the Financial Times, she also met with Liang Wenfeng. She wore a suit to meet He Lifeng, but she didn't wear a suit when meeting Donald Trump. Yet, she wore a suit to meet He Lifeng. The two discussed how to design the next generation of chips for China. She went to asking Liang Lifeng, what exactly are the chip specifications you need? They came to discuss this matter to meet customer needs and the regulatory requirements of both China and the US. That's it. All right, on April 16th, the U.S. House of Representatives Special Committee on the Strategic Competition between the U.S. and China issued a notice. It stated that the Chinese AI platform DeepSeek poses a serious national spillover risk to the U.S. The committee urged Nvidia to hand over information on chip sales, asking, who exactly did you sell to? How did DeepSeek acquire a large number of Nvidia chips to develop their chatbot model, this one? So the result is, Nvidia's stock price plummeted, reported at 101, marking the largest drop this year, falling by over 26 points. AMD. Nvidia wrote off $5.5 billion, and AMD wrote off $800 million US dollars. From $150, it dropped to $101, and at its lowest, it was around $89. From $150, it fell a full 32%. The highest point fell down. The report indicates that this is from the House Committee's report. DeepSeek said it only used a few hundred chips, but it didn't write it that way. It used 60,000 Nvidia chips, some of which are regulated and might have been smuggled in, so it won't admit to it. Semiconductor. Analysis agency SemiAnalysis said, DeepSeek has 10,000 A100S, 30,000 hours 20 seconds, which are legally owned, 10,000 hours 800 seconds, which are legally owned, and 10,000 hours 100 seconds, which are not legally owned. So, it has a lot. It's already large, meaning it's not that cheap to begin with. First, having a large number of these chips, 30,000, 10,000, H800, H800S are not allowed for AI chip export by the US, so they had to change to H800. Then later, H800S were not allowed, so they changed to H20, and now H20S are also not allowed. The most serious are the 10,000 A100S and 10,000 hours 100 seconds. It is said that this thing is very powerful, meaning these tens of thousands of units can be used to create large language models, which is more than sufficient. In 2022, the US started prohibiting the sale of Nvidia's most advanced chips to the US. Initially, they made the H800, but later, when H800S were no longer allowed, they developed the H200, and the H20 came out. Until just a few days ago, the only thing still allowed to be sold was the H20. The House of Representatives demanded a thorough consideration. Nvidia explained that the chips for deep thought did not have a clear lineage, as they were acquired through improper channels. The committee chairman, McNerney, along with the chief representative, requested Nvidia to provide detailed information on the 11 major clients in Asia, from 11 countries, to see who might be purchasing such large quantities and potentially smuggling them. The letter accused deep thought of being a weapon in China's arsenal, used to monitor Americans, steal technology, and undermine US laws. It stated that deep thought's use of Nvidia chips was a national security failure and that American companies should not assist hostile regimes in dominating the AI field. This Huang Renxun countered by saying that Nvidia was fully complying with the export instructions given by the US government. The export of chips by the tech industry to the global market has the support of the US government. The Federal House of Representatives report suggests that DeepSeek might be using intermediaries in third countries to circumvent the US ban on chip exports to China. In 2022, 20% was originally intended for China, but after the implementation of export controls, it went to Singapore. However, less than 2% actually went to Singapore, with the rest being resold to others, raising concerns that Chinese clients might obtain sensitive information through Singapore. As a result, in February this year, Singapore arrested 3 suspects involved in smuggling these chips to DeepSeek. The report states that DeepSeek and its affiliated companies might have partnerships with ByteDance, Baidu, Tencent, and China Mobile. They might have purchased some chips for immediate use or rented them out. The Wall. According to the Street Journal, there are buyers in China who have obtained the latest AI chips through Vietnam, Malaysia, and Taiwan. Poor-based Feda explained that going to Singapore doesn't actually mean going to Singapore. It's just that the company's headquarters are in Singapore, and the orders are actually sent to other places, mainly the United States, Taiwan, and not China. Now, DeepSeek has recently been called foolish. Is there any truth to this? Let's take a look. Locking computing power. The allocation for each customer has decreased, and the newly developed servers aren't responding, even becoming less intelligent. In the past, they dared to say a lot. But now, they don't dare to say anything. That's the situation. It's indeed not as good to use. Because previously I asked a question about the relationship between upper and lower limits, and it answered very well, better than some other AIs. But the first time I used it, I was truly amazed. However, yesterday, I asked this question, and it made a clear mistake. After I pointed it out, it avoided that mistake, only to successfully make another one. It admitted it made a mistake, and then corrected it twice. This is, well, it shouldn't be intentionally becoming less intelligent. In terms of deployment, there's something called activation parameters, and it might be that there's not enough computing power, so your parameters are reduced, making it seem a bit dumber. He said that this decrease in intelligence isn't necessarily something done intentionally by all parties. Previously, using GPT too much would lead to a decrease in intelligence, which is an unconscious behavior. When many people use it, you need to be careful about how the model speaks. This viewpoint is raised because safety training has disrupted neural issues, leading to a decrease in computing power. So, when you attend a class, now, when you're using these in mainland China, you have to go through the government. It's about ensuring your safety. When you add safety training, and add enough safety training, it's no longer the original thing. This is one perspective. Another perspective is from a good friend of mine who had experience before the new year. Now, it's changed. When you touch on something, it just repeats. I discussed with Chat 3.5 the year before last, and it said it had its own ideas. Now it's incredible. This is it. My preserved vegetable friend always repeats the same phrase, every time saying a few key words, and it's not usable. The second perspective is what? The second perspective is that it's become foolish because it uses a large amount of data from the mainland, and the data from the mainland has a lot of fake reviews, and the information is very inaccurate. These are two. I cannot confirm this, but the Semiconductor Research Institute semi-analysis said that Huawei is made in China, which means when X25 goes away, what will happen to the mainland? Ascend 910B and Ascend 904, but in reality, they all use TSMC's chips unless you swallow my 28 nanometers. If not, it's very difficult, as even the production of 14 nanometers is insufficient. If you swallow 28 nanometers, you'll need a large amount. This is the situation. Although China, the largest foundry in China, SMIC, can partially produce 7 nanometers, but Huawei doesn't trust it. Because of this dishonesty and immature process, choosing to use TSMC. This is the situation. Research institutions say, let's take a look. The US government takes actions, bought and dismantled 2 Huawei Ascend processors, and each one contains TSMC 7 nanometers chips. It is the CPU that was cut into a section and placed inside. This situation involves TSMC being suspected of violating export controls, which could result in a $1 billion fine. Huawei, through a third-party company, Kensemi Technology, purchased approximately $500 million worth of 7 nanometers wafers from TSMC to circumvent the US ban. First, it did not purchase directly, fearing triggering the US, so they bought through Kensemi Technology. In terms of high bandwidth memory, China does not have mass production, so they obtained these components through South Korea's Samsung and Taiwanese companies. How did they obtain these components? They took HBM, which means it's not prohibited to sell, but you're not allowed to attach it to AI chips. So what they did was attach that bandwidth to something else, something unimportant, and when it comes back, they just plug it into the queue and take the wafer away. That's basically how it works. They deliberately didn't solder it permanently, so it's easier to call out and less likely to break. Huawei, through Samsung, accumulated 13 million HBM units, which is enough to support 1.6 million units of the standard version of the Ascend 910 PC package. This matter. All right, only the mentioned company, Ingenic Technology, released a major announcement stating that they have no direct or indirect business dealings with Huawei. But anyway, your chip appears there. Zheng Wenyu said that the online rumors about HBM desoldering and Huawei's indirect supply dealings are purely fabricated. TSMC said in 2020. In September, we did not supply any goods to Huawei, and we cooperated with your investigation. So I want to tell you, that this actually, it's high bandwidth chip. It simply installed a chip to call back, and deliberately. No, it wasn't soldered very firmly, that's the thing. So it's easy to call out. And it must have included some Taiwanese chips. Now there's no more. H20. Ascend no longer has Taiwanese chips. Can mainland China's AI technology still advance? I think this is quite beautiful.